Hey guys, what's going on? It's Waldo. Today we're here for the start of my MLB The Show 16 fantasy draft franchise. As you're going to see, we will be using the Cleveland Indians. I almost picked the Phillies there, but that's coming up. When the Operation Sports rosters come out, that's when the Phillies franchise will start. But for now, we're going to start with this Cleveland Indians fantasy draft franchise. We were lucky enough to get the number 9 overall pick. So let's just see what happens. No surprise, Kershaw and Trout went 1-2, followed by Harper, Arrieta, Scherzer, Goldschmidt, Altuve, and Donaldson. And I know my speech is a little bit above, what's going on the screen here, but don't worry, we're all good to go. So I decided to do this as a post commentary, but keep the full draft in here. One, because it would have been a little difficult for me to do a live commentary based on the setup that I'm running. And two, I was going to just, try to rush through every pick and just kind of try to explain why I picked them. But I figured I might as well keep the full draft in here. That way I could have some time to explain what was going through my head when I was making these picks. So think of it as like a director's commentary that you'd find on a movie or something. So we're still in the first round here. The pitchers definitely intrigued me. I'm always a sucker for a really good pitcher like a Chris Sale or a Greinke or any of those guys, a Matt Harvey, a Bumgarner, DeGrom, Hernandez. But ultimately I did not end up going with one of them because, number one, I kind of struggle with hitting a little bit in this game. And while getting a good hitter doesn't mean I'm going to hit better, it'll definitely help the cause out. I was looking at catchers, but then I kind of figured that there's because after Posey, the quality of catchers kind of drops down a little bit. So it's kind of tempting to take him if you have a chance. I mean, he is one of the best players in the game. But ultimately, you'll see I did not choose a catcher. Then I'm looking through the third baseman there, Machado and Arenado. Machado was intriguing because he's so young, but Arenado, he's got that great bat. And then obviously Carlos Correa, how can you pass up on that guy? 21 years old. He'd definitely be a really excellent player to build around over the next several years. There wasn't any left fielders or center fielders that intrigued me. Giancarlo Stanton intrigued me just a little bit, but there's just a plethora of outfielders that you can get in the later rounds, so I decided to pass on them. And I went back to Posey because at this point it was between Posey and Correa, and just looking at Posey's, he's a great all-around player aside from speed, but I decided to go with Carlos Correa just because of the fact that he's 21 years old, already a 91 overall. He would definitely be a great centerpiece to build around for the next several years because I don't know how long this series is going to go, but I decided to just start off with Carlos Correa, shortstop, one of the most important positions on the diamond. And so that was our first round pick at number 9 overall. So, keep on going here. No real surprises, I suppose, as we're looking at the draft order just go right by. And now I knew I needed an ace, a good number 1 pitcher that I could rely on. And here I considered Stroman, I considered Kluber, I considered Corbin and Salazar a bit, but I ended up going with Strasburg because you can't pass this guy up. I know he's going to be a free agent pretty soon, but you can't pass Steven Strasburg up. He'll be our perfect number 1. He'll be our ace, and hopefully he performs pretty well. Moving into the second round, I considered taking another pitcher, but then I figured that, just the same thing. There's so many good pitchers that you can get in the later rounds. You don't need to take one in the first and second round or the second and third round back to back. In my opinion, it's always good to get 2 bats in the first 3 rounds. That way, you have 2 guys you can rely on in your lineup, if nothing else. And I was looking at Betts for the same reason I was looking at Correa. He's just so young, such an excellent all-around player. He can really do a little bit of everything. But then I saw Marte, and I figured his speed, that would be a wonderful thing to have on the base paths. Because for those of you that watch my OTP franchise, you'd know that I don't really have a lot of speed on that Angels team. So when I saw the opportunity to get Marte, I figured that we could do some damage on the base pass. We could manufacture runs with Marte at the top of the lineup. We could have him, get on with a leadoff single and then steal second and then get him home, get an early 1-0 lead in a lot of games. So that was my thinking there. And then I see Michael Wacha available in the Stars, and this was kind of like a personal pick. I've enjoyed pitching with Wacha ever since 2013. I believe he was on the OSFM rosters at that point, but I've always enjoyed pitching with him since MLB The Show 13. And I considered Ventura and McCullers, but ultimately I went with Wacha. It's a personal thing. I know, he maybe wasn't the best pitcher available, but at the same time, I just really enjoy pitching with him. I always seem to do pretty well with him, so I decided to go with him. So now you see we have 2 bats and 2 really good starting pitchers, in my opinion, Strasburg and Wacha, and then Correa and Marte. And now I'm looking at the catchers, and obviously they're going to start going pretty soon. The quality really drops off after, I'd say, Salvador would be the only one I would take this early, but I mean, there's still good serviceable ones later on. I mean, you see all the way down Castro, Soto, Grandal. I'm sure Swihart's still down there, so there's just so many guys you can get later. And then I'm just kind of, looking through to see what I would perhaps want. I see Christian Yelich down there. He kind of intrigued me. Then I see Yasiel Puig. So first I check out Yelich. I see that he's not the most powerful guy, but he has solid vision, good discipline, and he's a good contact hitter. Then I see Puig. Obviously, he did pretty good his first couple of years. Last year was a bit of an off year for him, injuries and a lot of other issues. I took a look at Herrera. I'm a Phillies fan. I just wanted to see what his speed was and just if he could be a good member of the team. But then I ended up going back to Puig. I was really close to going for Puig, but then I decided, okay, if he's there in the next round, I'll take Puig, but I can't pass up Yelich. She's going to be one of the better outfielders in the game, as time goes on. So I decided I had to do that. And then I saw right there the Dodgers actually got Puig back, so he would not be available here in the 6th round. But here I consider going for another pitcher like Kyle Hendricks, but I figured I could wait on starting pitchers a little bit because I have a solid 1-2. And I figured I could find a serviceable 3 and I guess 4 and 5 later on. So I'm looking at right fielders, and nobody really intrigues me. Corey Dickerson does, but his contact rating against left-handers, that kind of concerned me just a little bit. So I wanted to see if I could find a better option. Then I saw Maikel Franco, and by this point, I was just kind of looking around here. I looked at Colton Wong, as you can see, but I'm a Phillies fan. I cannot pass up my boy Maikel Franco because there wasn't any first baseman there. They really intrigued me. I went down the list, and there was some first baseman down there that intrigued me more than the guys towards the top of the list. So I figured I could wait on first baseman, so I grabbed Franco when I could there in the 6th round. Moving on to the 7th round, we're building up a solid team here. I think we have a solid lineup, and then I knew the run on relief pitchers was coming up in a few rounds, so I figured I'd get ahead of that curve and get the best relief pitcher available. Not the best closer, but just the best, relief pitcher. And although you could argue Dellin Betances would be a pretty good closer, but in this game he's considered a relief pitcher, so I decided to grab him. I was considering Alex Wood. He's only 25 years old, but I did not like his stamina, only 68. I knew, every 5th game that he'd pitch, we'd have to rely on the bullpen pretty much, so I decided not to go with Alex Wood. He's actually on my Diamond Dynasty team, if I remember correctly, but I decided not to go with him. Looking at catchers, pretty much the same guys are still there for the most part. First baseman, the same guys are still there. So here it really just comes down to personal preference. I see Brett Lawrie, and I kind of consider if I'd want to use him as my starting second baseman, but I kind of, I didn't want to do that. So then I look back at right fielders, and I see Jorge Soler. He's only 24 years old. He definitely have a lot of room to grow. I look at Jay Bruce, but his contact wasn't that good. But then I see Stephen Piscotty, the Cardinals right fielder. He can also play left center and first base. Be potential 81 overall. I decided to go with him. I really liked his contact ratings and his vision ratings. I felt like he could be a really solid member of this team. So now, if you're keeping track, we have all of our outfield positions filled. We have Starling Marte in left, Christian Yelich in center, and then Piscotty in right. So here I'm kind of considering taking a pitcher, but there was no one really that intrigued me, at least in terms of starters. I mean, you see the same guys are basically still there. And then I decided, since this run on relief pitchers was coming up pretty soon, I might as well take Yimi Garcia in the 9th round. And actually this is the run right here, because you see every single pick. It always happens every single year in a fantasy draft. Every single year around the 9th round, everyone picks a relief pitcher every single year. So I was pretty lucky to get ahead of the curve with Betances, and I ended up getting Yimi Garcia as well. So I think it worked out pretty well. I have 2 nice arms there towards the back of my bullpen. So if my starters can go 6 or 7 innings, we should be good to go. Now I'm looking at second baseman because they kind of fall off after, I believe, Cesar Hernandez. I mean, Brock Holt and Omar Infante, I guess they're okay. But I wanted to get a second baseman there because I saw a few were going before that. I ended up going with Devin Travis, another young guy who I feel like we can build around. And I really like our middle infield now. You got guys that can field, guys with, some type of speed. So I was pretty happy with that. I see Will Myers at first base here. And I decided to just take a flyer on him just because there was a reason that he was one of the top prospects in all of baseball a few years ago. So I decided to just take a chance on him. He'll be our starting first baseman. We'll see if he can, maybe recapture what made him, so good back in the day. Especially, with the Rays there for at least a little bit. But now I'm looking at catchers, and as you see the options, as I was talking about earlier, they do kind of, they're not as good as they were initially. But I see Blake Swihart. He's only 24 years old. He was considered one of the better hitting catching prospects a couple years ago. I decided to go with him, beat potential. I was looking at Oscar Hernandez, but I ended up going with Swihart. I figured he would be a solid starting backstop for us. He couldn't be much worse than the other guys there anyway, at the worst. So here I know I kind of need a third starting pitcher now. I've kind of let that go a little bit. Brandon Finnegan was intriguing, but that stamina rating kind of worried me a bit. 76 stamina. I like guys that can pitch deep into games, so normally I like these guys to have like at least an 80, 82 stamina. And I didn't like any of those pitchers, so I decided to just let them go. I was considering Jordan Walden and just fortifying my bullpen even more, but I decided against that. And I believe it's around this point that I realized that since I'm in the AL, I need a DH. So I kind of started looking at Ortiz. He was intriguing. Only 1 year left on his contract. Obviously, very good hitter. But then I settled on Victor Martinez. You'll see I settled on Martinez here in a second. I considered A-Rod just for the heck of it. But eventually I ended up going, I checked Jock Peterson, but I hated his vision, his contact ratings. I normally like guys who have really good vision ratings. Because for those of you who don't know, in this game, vision is your ability to put the bat on the ball. And Martinez is really, really good, as you can tell. So I ended up going with Victor Martinez. The fact that his contract is for 3 years, that kind of concerned me just a little bit, considering that he's 37 years old. But I'm just kind of holding out hope that he doesn't start to regress too fast. Because if he does, then we're going to be in a bit of a pickle. But at least for this year, he'll be our starting DH. No, I suppose there's not like you have a backup DH, but anyway, I'm looking at relief pitchers again. I look at Adam Warren. I was thinking about him, and I figured he could be a solid long relief guy just because of his stamina rating. He's a guy that could make, maybe a few spot starts for us here and there. And if I remember correctly, I don't end up picking Warren. I actually end up picking Kevin Quackenbush here. He's only been in his major league service time. You see, it's not very high. It's about 1 year. He's still pretty young, only 27 years old. I really liked his attributes right there. I looked just to see his stats, see how he did the past couple of years. I knew last year he was, his stats didn't look good, but that's just because, the Padres' defense, it was atrocious. So those, like his ERA and the whip and those stats, they're going to be a little higher than normal just because of how bad that defense was. He didn't get a ton of help. So I ended up picking Quackenbush, and here I decided to finally take a third starting pitcher, and Ervin Santana with his 92 stamina rating. He's only making $4.7 million a year for the next 3 years. Only 33, so he'll be with us until he's 36. I figured that would be good. I considered Jason Hamill, but I ended up going with Ervin Santana. I saw Brett Anderson. I was kind of hoping that he would be there when I picked next, but as you're going to see here, towards the end of the 15th round, he ended up getting taken, unfortunately, because I figured he would be a good left-handed pitcher. And you see here, I go back just to make sure, like I actually saw his name. And there he is. He actually went back to the Oakland Athletics like he was towards the start of his career. So we didn't end up getting Brett Anderson, but we still have a solid 1, 2, 3 in Strasburg, Wacha, and Ervin Santana, at least in my opinion. So now it's time to start building up the depth on this team, the bench guys, because bench guys are very important. You shouldn't really overlook them. Solid bench guys could be the difference between winning and losing a game some of the time. I saw the Zepeda guy, Adrian Zepeda, A potential, 74 overall already. I didn't want to draft him now because he was, really, really young. I kind of wanted a veteran at this point. And I saw Gregor Blanco, who's 32 years old. He seemed like he could be, he could play all 3 outfield positions. So I figured he could be a solid backup option. And I go back quickly to check if these beta guys still there. And unfortunately, he wasn't there. I just wasn't willing to take him that early on because I didn't want him to be the backup. So, in hindsight, I probably could have drafted him and then drafted Blanco in the next round if I really wanted to. But unfortunately, that just is not how it worked out. Here, I'm just looking at the relief pitchers here. I figure, 4 relief pitchers at this point in the draft, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I'm looking at starters because I know I need now a 4th and a 5th starter. And the options now, they're not that appealing. Because I wouldn't want a guy like Jorge De La Rosa. Nolasco didn't appeal to me. Kyle Loesch didn't appeal to me. But then I saw C.J. Wilson. And obviously, he was pretty good there for a while. Even last year, he didn't do all that bad. 3.89 ERA, 110 strikeouts, 46 walks, and about 120 innings. His stamina was high, and we don't have any left-handers in the starting rotation yet, so I figured I'd take a chance on C.J. Wilson. If nothing else, his contract is only for 1 year, so I figured that he couldn't hurt us that much. If anything, we'll just call up somebody from the minor leagues or whatever to fill in for him if he starts to perform poorly or gets injured. And so at this point, we need a 5th starter. I see Robbie Erlin, another left-hander. That would be nice. And then I see John Gray, but his stamina is not where I'd like it to be. So here's Robbie Ray, a 73 stamina. Now, I've explained my issue with guys with low stamina, but I figured I'd take a chance on Robbie Ray, only 24 years old. If for nothing else, then he actually turned out to be a stud in my OOTP franchise. So we'll see if he can develop like that in this game as well. Here I decided to take a chance on Tyler Lyons. I figured he could be a good long relief pitcher a la Adam Warren. And if anything, he could, fill in for us for a spot start every now and then. Like, let's say if somebody gets hurt or somebody just, doesn't have enough energy to pitch. Could just throw him in there, have him pitch 3 or 4 innings, maybe 5 innings if we're lucky. And that would be good. Here I'm looking at more relief pitchers, but I figured I wouldn't want to take 2 in a row, especially at this point. I want to keep building up my bench. So now I'm looking for a backup infielder, and Kelby Tomlinson kind of intrigues me. His vision's solid. He's only 25 years old. He hasn't been in the MLB for a full season yet. His contact ratings were pretty solid. He was okay in the field. Peraza also was appealing to me. There was a lot of guys here that were appealing. Jace Peterson as well. Tommy La Stella, as you saw earlier, but I ended up going with Kelby Tomlinson. It was between Tomlinson and Peterson, and I ended up going with Tomlinson, as you're going to see here in a couple seconds here. Come on, Waldo. Okay, there we go. All right, so as I mentioned, we're going to pick Tomlinson, and then going back around here, now we're in, I don't even know what round we're in anymore. We'll see in a second. I know I still need a closer, and I'm targeting Brad Ziegler, so I'm hoping he's still going to be there. But right now I'm looking for a backup catcher, because backup catchers, in my opinion, are pretty important. AJ Ellis appealed to me just because of his high fielding ratings. But then I saw Wilson Ramos, and this is a guy that's actually pretty good with the bat, at least in my opinion. And I figured he's still young enough to maybe be a solid piece for us in the future. So I decided to go with Ramos. I figure a Swihart-Ramos duo behind the plate, that would be pretty solid. That's better than most teams could say. So that's going to be our catching tandem for at least this season, and hopefully for the future as well, because both of them are pretty young. Now I'm kind of looking to build up my bench still. I'm just kind of looking through what I have, kind of to figure out what I would want to take exactly, because at this point I'm not really too sure, because I have the 5 starters that I need. You see I have this, and now I'm looking at relief pitchers. I think at this point what I was trying to do was just kind of determine how many guys I had on the team, because obviously you can only have 25 guys on your major league roster, so I'm kind of counting at this point just to see how many guys I have, how many more guys I can draft, because at this point I know I still need 2 relief pitchers, I need a closer, and ideally I'd like to get at least 1 more bench bat. So here I'm kind of looking at bench bats here. Look at David Freese, look at the other Matt Duffy on the Astros. And here I'm just kind of looking through everybody. I look at Stephen Drew, and then I just kind of go back down to his days with the Diamondbacks just to remember how good he used to be back in the day. He was one of my favorite players back in the day. I really enjoyed watching him. I look at Oswaldo Arcia. Looking at just some outfielders here. I see Grady Sizemore down there. I see Cody Ashley. As a Phillies fan, I wouldn't mind having him. I see Alexi Amarista, and he really appealed to me because he can play almost any position. He can play every infield position except first. He can play every outfield position. So I decided to get him just for the fact that he could play almost anywhere. He's a great utility option. He could start for people that need a day off. I mean, he could conceivably play 3 days a week, when guys need a day off. And now I'm going to try to build up this bullpen here. I see John Axford. He had some really good years with the Brewers back in the day, so I decided to take Axford. I know he's 33, but I figured he wouldn't be all that bad. So now we only need 1 more relief pitcher along with a closing pitcher. And here I believe I took a look at Wesley Maxwell. I took a look at Dale Thayer. And even though he's 35 years old, I figured Thayer would be solid. His home runs per 9 rating, it's not that high, but I figured he wouldn't kill me, and he would be a solid 6th guy in this bullpen. So that would be the last relief pitcher I end up taking. And now I'm going to end up taking Ziegler just because I know, or Ziegler. I probably should know. Probably should have looked up how to say it. I should know how to say that. I forget if it's Ziegler or Ziegler. Somebody let me know, because I'm going to feel bad if I keep messing up his name. I always forget every year how to say his name. It's pretty bad. But here we go in round 26. I figured I'd just take him because we need a closing pitcher, and that would round out our bullpen. So we have our 7 relief pitchers. We have our 5 starters. That's 12 pitchers. So now at this point, I was looking to see if that Angel Arias guy was still there, because I would have liked to draft him to put him down in AAA just to develop while Ziegler's still here, because he's 36 years old, so he's not going to be around here forever. But I ended up going with another guy who was a top 50 prospect, at least according to the game. So hopefully he continues to develop that way. When Brad Gimmick retires, we'll be good to go. But you see here, I'm just going to end up simulating the rest of the draft. We are in the 27th round, so I didn't feel it necessary to complete the whole draft like I would if I was using the OSFM rosters, just because it isn't really much of a it's kind of tedious at this point to do all of those rounds with these rosters. So transitioning a bit, I figured I'd play a couple of spring training games just to kind of showcase the team. So the first game we're going to play, it's here at Date Palm Field. We're going to be going up against the Cincinnati Reds here in this first spring training game. There's going to be two in here. One will, coincidentally, I will say this now, both of them actually ended up being against the Cincinnati Reds. I usually don't play spring training games. I was actually just going to leave this entire part out, but I figured I might as well just show you guys the team, because with the fantasy draft, it's a little different because, the team, it's not composed of the players that are actually on it, and that's such a bad way to describe it. Like, when I do my Phillies franchise, I'm not going to do any spring training games because, most people know who's on the Phillies, but with this fantasy draft, it's nice to see how the team plays together, see what we got going. So today, you see we have Marte, Yelich, and Piscotty in the outfield, Franco, Correa, Travis, and Myers in the infield, Strasburg as the pitcher, and Ramos as the catcher. So we're about set to go here from Date Palm Field. I'll show you a few highlights here. Top of the first, 0-2 count. First batter Strasburg will face, as a member of the Indians, is Ben Revere, and he's going to go down looking on the curveball. He's not too happy about that, questioning the umpire. But regardless, here now, bottom of the first, we're going to just send Marte here on the steal. Might as well just see what kind of speed he has, and he is easily in there. Nice try by the catcher, but Marte just too fast, and he's in there in second base with no outs. Unfortunately, we were not able to get him home. Top of the second now, 2-2 count. Here is the pitch to Trevor Plouffe, and he goes down swinging. 2 strikeouts for Strasburg. Now here's Ervin Santana. All of our starting pitchers will get exactly 2 innings in these spring training games. 3 starting pitchers will go in the first one, 2 in the second one, and then the rest of the innings will be filled by relief pitchers. So, second batter, Santana faces, bunts, and now Franco barehands it, throws over to first, and he is out. That was Danny Espinosa, who was pretty fast in his own right, but no match for Franco. Let's just see this from a different angle. This is a perfect angle. Espinosa, gets the bunt down, but Franco sprints up to the ball, gets it in his bare hand, and that's pretty hard to do when your momentum's carrying you one way and you have to throw the other. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, because that used to be a pretty prominent line in the MLB The Show franchise. But regardless, you see Santana gets the strikeout there on Mark Teixeira. He gives him the stink eye. Now moving on here to the top of the fourth, Santana's still in, of course, and that ball is grounded. But look at the play by Devin Travis over there at second, and the runner is out at first base. What a dive there to end the inning by Devin Travis. Let's look at it again in slow motion, and wow. Way to prevent a base hit there, Mr. Travis. So it'll be nice having him in the infield this year. So now we see Robbie Ray here. We are now in the top of the 5th inning. This was, of course, the last starting pitcher we selected in the draft. I was going to say the 25-round draft, but obviously it's a lot more than that. And he strikes out John Jaso. High fastball. And he would actually do pretty good in his 2 innings. Not much to note here. So now we're going to bring in our 35-year-old relief pitcher, Dale Thayer. He got through his innings pretty well. So now we're going to bring in Yimi Garcia. 0-2 count, 2 outs here in the top of the 8th inning. Strikes out. Tried to check his swing, did Teixeira, but he went around. It's still a shutout here in the bottom of the 8th. 1-1 count to Will Myers. And Will Myers is tired about the shutout. He's going to send that to deep left field, and that ball is gone. Home run for the former highly touted prospect Will Myers, and now this game no longer a shutout, 1-0 in favor of the Cleveland Indians. It would be nice to see Myers do that on a consistent basis during the regular season. That one traveled 372 feet, so great job by Myers breaking the game open. Or starting the scoring, I should say. That'd probably be a better way to describe it. Now it's 1-0. You see Marte, he's going to line this into the left center field gap, and this one's going to go all the way to the wall. Marte, he's not going to stop at 2 there. Remember, he has some speed. We saw that earlier. He's going to try to get this RBI triple, and he does get into third base safely. An RBI triple for Starling Marte. He would come home on a sacrifice fly. So now we have our closer in Brad Ziegler, and he's going to get Teixeira looking on the changeup. Teixeira's had a rough day so far. Cleveland now winning 3-0, 1 out, and Plouffe goes down looking high and away. Pitch, and now here we go. First pitch, John Jaso sees from Ziegler. He's going to rip it out to left center field. Will Marte get to it? Yes, he will. And the Cleveland Indians win their first spring training game by a final score of 3-0. Our pitchers performed very, very well today. Our offense, of course, led by Will Myers and Starling Marte. There were some other players who got a hit. I just didn't want to really put them in there. because they're only singles. But now we're going to move on to the second spring training game. Coincidentally, as I mentioned earlier, against the same Cincinnati Reds. So here we are. It is now the second spring training game here from a different spring training stadium. This one is in Baseball City, Florida. This is where the Topps Amateur Showcase takes place, if it looks familiar to you. I'm sure you guys already knew that, but in case you didn't, today you learned. It's always good to learn something new every day, and as you can tell, I'm just trying to fill time here. Pretty pathetically, I might add, but anyway, once again, as I've mentioned a couple times, this is also against the same Cincinnati Reds, although this time they have Corey Kluber starting for them in place of Clayton Kershaw. You see our lineup changes a little bit. Now we have Marte, Piscotty, Martinez, Franco, but we also have Blanco, Swihart, Tomlinson, Amarista, and Michael Wacha will be our starting pitcher today. We'll pick this one up in the bottom of the first inning. Wacha on the mound, 0-2 count to Ben Revere, and Wacha's got the strikeout pitch working here in the first part of, or the bottom half of the inning. Strikes out Revere there. Of course, you have to throw down the first because it was a drop third strike, but we ended up getting it now. Mark Teixeira in to face Wacha. 1-2 count, and Teixeira goes down swinging on the curveball. He's not too happy about it. He's had a rough couple days here against the Cleveland Indians, but regardless here, we will head now to the second inning, bottom of the second actually, because our offense is a little stagnant right now. 2-2 count and strikeout Danny Espinosa. And that would be Wacha's last batter faced of the day. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, our starting pitcher is only going 2 innings now, top of the third. And I figured I'd just let Wacha hit because he probably won't get a lot of chances to do that this year. And he actually laces one down the left field line, bounces up against the wall. And Wacha, using those wheels, chugs into second base for a leadoff double. And now this is important because, as you'll see here, as Wacha dusts himself off, as you'll see here, Starling Marte up at the plate, 1-0 count, and that one is lifted out to deep left center field. No doubt about it, that one is gone near the palm trees out there in left center field. Marte with his first home run of the spring, and that makes this a 2-0 game in favor of the Indians. Kluber not happy with himself. See there, Marte rounds third, heading home. And, of course, Francona very happy about that. Marte, hopefully he can homer a few more times this season. That was his first one of the spring, 432 feet. Now, bottom of the third, C.J. Wilson in a little bit of trouble, but he strikes out Mark Teixeira. Once again, Teixeira having a bit of a rough go of it. Wilson with a little fist bump, and we will head now to the top of the fourth inning. Here's Blake Swihart, who did not get the start yesterday, decided to start him today over Wilson Ramos, and he, no doubt about it, he knew it right when it left his bat. That one is gone over the right field wall. And now the Indians have a 3-0 lead, so very different story from yesterday. Of course, their offense could not get going until the 8th inning in game number 1, but here in game number 2, the offense seems to be a little more productive here. Francona, of course, very happy. 372 feet, that home run for Blake Swihart. Now we'll head to the bottom of the fourth. Wilson, 0-2 count, 2 outs, and the pitch to Espinosa, and he strikes out swing on the changeup low and away. That would be the last batter Wilson faces for today. And you see here, that is a home run, actually, for Gregor Blanco. I don't know what happened there. I think it's maybe my editing just messed up there a little bit, so I'm sorry about that. That won't happen again. Don't worry about that. But you see, Blanco hits a 2-run shot, that makes this a 5-0 game. Blanco didn't play in the game yesterday either, so a lot of guys who didn't play yesterday making some contributions here early. But here we go, 5-0 game, 0-2 count. Dale Thayer, I believe that was. I believe that's Dale Thayer. Yeah. Oh, no, that's Kevin Quackenbush. Excuse me. Dale Thayer pitched yesterday, and you see Quackenbush had the strikeout pitch working today. 2 strikeouts in his frame, his lone frame. Moving on to the bottom of the 6th inning. Here is Tyler Lyons, and he gets, I wish I knew who that was. I feel really bad that I don't know who that is. I'll get these. Don't worry. This is spring training for me, too, guys. Don't worry. You see Lyons had the strikeout pitch working there against Josh Fegley. Now, bottom of the 9th here is Dellin Betances, and, of course, you know Betances, strikeout machine. Strikes out Teixeira on the knuckle curve. Now here, 1 out, 0-2 count, and Plouffe strikes out on the high 4-seam fastball. And now final batter of the game, Albert Jensen. 2 outs to go here, man on second base, and Jensen swings at that knuckle curve. Count is now 0-1. Betances back at it again, another knuckle curve, and now the count is 0-2. So the Reds down to their final strike. Jensen is going to be the man here to try to break the shot. You see Ether there on second base, and this ball is popped up over to the right side of the infield. Unfortunately, Victor Martinez in his old age cannot get there. So we will do this again. 0-2 count, and Jensen lets that one go smartly. Bit of a waste pitch there from Betances. Count is now 1-2. So here is the 1-2 pitch from Betances, and that one is just popped up behind the catcher. And that will do it. Blake Swihart camps out under it, and the Indians start out the spring 2-0. Francona has to be ecstatic at what he's seeing from his team here in the early going. The pitching has looked absolutely terrific. 2 straight shutouts. The offense is looking pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. This team looks like it could, maybe do pretty good here once we get to the regular season. And as we delve deeper into the season, it seems like this could be one of the... obviously, through 2 spring games, obviously you don't want to draw too much assumptions, but this definitely does look like a team that could be a contender based on what we've seen so far. But anyway, guys, I think this will be it for me. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy. I'm sorry if my speech seemed a little off there at times. I'm doing this close to 10 o'clock at night, so I am a little tired. I meant to do this earlier, but other commitments did come up, so I was not able to do it until tonight. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching this. As I mentioned, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. This will be up every single Friday, so you guys always know just to check my channel every Friday if you are a fan of this series. Be sure to, if you are a fan of my OOTP series, check out tomorrow, because there will be a completely new video. And I'm just going to stop talking now because I am completely lost all sense of how to talk English. So once again, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.